right, welcome to Talking Investing. I'm Tom, and as always, this is not financial advice. Today, I want to talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. Once again, a lot is going on. Of course, we just had the Bitcoin halving. This happens once every 4 years. There were some unexpected results going on with Bitcoin and the Bitcoin fees right after the halving. So I want to take a look at that today. And of course, we're going to go through all of our normal charts. We're going to take a look at what happened last week. We're going to take a look at what happened year to date with Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. And we'll take a quick look at the Bitcoin chart itself. And we're going to take a look at what I think might be a trend reversal in the Bitcoin miners. So it may be a little too soon to tell, but last week was a very encouraging week. We had something happen last week that we haven't really had happen in the last 4 months. So we're going to take a look at all of those things. So we got a lot to go through. As always, there will be chapters below. Let's talk about Bitcoin. If you're new here, we talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin miners all the time on this channel. So if that's content you're interested in, please consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you, everybody. We did just reach 20,000 subscribers, so that was a big milestone. Also, if everybody could do us a favor and smash the like button, I appreciate all the likes we've been getting lately. We're going for 800 likes on this video. We're going to get to all of our regular charts. I want to start out with something that's been going on the last few days with Bitcoin, and it affects the Bitcoin miners in a big way. Okay, so this article came out. Bitcoin miners reap a windfall as, quote, Rune's debut sends transaction fees to record highs. The Bitcoin halving was supposed to dramatically chop revenue of Bitcoin mining companies. Instead, the simultaneous launch of Casey Rodarmore's Ruins protocol has ignited a flurry activity on the oldest and largest blockchain, driving up fees. So I want to go right to the blocks themselves and show you just how dramatic of an impact this has had on the Bitcoin miners in the short term. It has been pulling back a little bit down to earth, but still the fees are really through the roof compared to where they've been historically. And this makes a big difference because really since the halving so far in the first 2 days, Bitcoin miners are actually getting more Bitcoin than they were before the halving. Now, that will not persist. It's already pulled back quite a bit from its peak, but the fees are still substantially higher than they have been over the course of time. So let's take a quick look at two charts that show us that. First of all, this is right after the halving. So this is each individual Bitcoin block that gets mined. You'll see the 840,000th block. That was the first block after the halving. You're going to see this column over here is the fees. This is the number of Bitcoin. Now, over the course of time, this is usually significantly less than 1 Bitcoin. Somewhere around 0.2 Bitcoin has been the average over time. You're going to see the very first block, 37.6 Bitcoin in fees. So the reward for that block was 40 Bitcoin. Now remember, 6.25 was the reward plus the fees. So oftentimes they were getting 6.5, 7, sometimes 7.5. This is 40. But this was not just a single one-off incident. You're going to see here's 16 Bitcoin in fees, 24 Bitcoin in fees, 29, 23, 17, 12. So this persisted for many blocks after the halving. If we go now 2.5 days later, we're not getting these types of numbers anymore. But if you look at the most recent blocks, they're still at or near 2 Bitcoin per block. That's resulting in rewards near 5 Bitcoin. So this has not so far been a 50% reduction in the reward. It's been more like a 20 or 25% reduction. And in fact, for the first 12 hours, it was a significant increase in the reward. This chart shows the fees as a percentage of the total reward. So you're going to see if I go to a normal day here, the fees are under 5%. And historically, that's been the case. Well, right before the halving, we had these pop up to between 10 and 15%. So they were already a little high. And then with the launch of the Ruins protocol, you're going to see on April 20th, this got up to 75%. This is the highest they've ever been in the history of Bitcoin. They have pulled back. On the 21st, they were at 44%, still basically the highest in the history of Bitcoin. I do not expect this to last forever, but we're going to have to keep our eye on the fees because this is a massive boost to the Bitcoin miners. So if this persists, if the fees end up even at 20% versus the historical 3 or 4 or 5% they've been at in the past, this is going to be a big mitigating factor, and this is going to make a big difference for the Bitcoin miners' profitability over time. So again, we don't know how long this is going to last. If I zoom out to a 1 year, you'll see this has happened a few times before. Just about a year ago in May of 2023, we had a very short burst in this where for a few days, the fees did get over 40%. They pulled right back down to, 5% or less. And then in November of 2023 and really in December of 2023, the fees popped up to historic levels again. Most of the Bitcoin miners had the best month of the year mining in 2023 in December because of the increase in these fees, despite the fact that the difficulty level went up every single month all year last year. So we're going to have to see what this does to the month of April. Let's get on to what's happening with Bitcoin and Bitcoin miners on the weekly basis, on the monthly basis, year to date, other things. Okay, so this is the first chart. You're going to see this is week over week. So this is where I'm saying I see a potential trend reversal. So week over week as of last Friday, Bitcoin was down 4%. 15 of the 19 Bitcoin miners that we followed outperformed Bitcoin. This is a big change. You're going to see in the charts year to date, the exact opposite has been happening all year. We're about 16 weeks into the Bitcoin miners lagging behind Bitcoin in a big way. This past week, that was not the case. In fact, some of these Bitcoin miners were off to the races and they had very big up weeks, while Bitcoin was down 4%. So of the large cap Bitcoin miners, you're going to see CleanSpark led the way for all the Bitcoin miners, up 16% last week, while Bitcoin was down 4%. Some of the other noteworthy ones here, TeraWulf was up 12% on the week. Mawson, which is a microcap stock, was up 13% on the week. Then you're going to see we dropped down a little bit, but still, Iris Energy, Bitfarms were up 6%. That versus down 4% for Bitcoin. So that is a big difference. We haven't seen this really in 4 months. The question is, what's going to happen this week? Can we start putting a few of these type of weeks together in a row and see maybe a trend reversal here where the Bitcoin miners start to catch up to Bitcoin? This is what has happened in the past. So we've seen these fluctuations over time. The same exact thing happened in 2023. We had a 14-week period where the Bitcoin miners behaved poorly, and then all of a sudden they went really skyrocketed and caught up to Bitcoin's performance. So we're going to have to see, is this the beginning of that switch? We're now 16 weeks into that this year, but we do see much better price activity. If we look at the other two largest by market cap Bitcoin miners, Marathon was up 2% on the week, and Riot was up 0% flat on the week. So that doesn't sound good, but that's still much better than the performance of Bitcoin, which was down 4% on the week. And it is worth noting, Friday was really the big day. Riot and Marathon were up 10% on Friday, roughly. So that got them both into the green for the week. So we're going to see if that momentum continues. Okay, conversely, this is Bitcoin year to date. So we're going to see the exact opposite here. There is one outlier. CleanSpark is up 56% year to date. You're going to see that is actually ahead of Bitcoin, which as always is in gold. Bitcoin, as of last Friday, was up 53% year to date. So CleanSpark is the only Bitcoin miner in the green as of last Friday, and it's the only Bitcoin miner that's outperforming Bitcoin. We do have two others that have been outperforming the pack. TeraWulf and Cypher are down 5% and down 7%, so still lagging way behind Bitcoin, but they are the next best performers. If we look at the other larger market cap Bitcoin miners, you're going to see Marathon still down 30% year to date versus Bitcoin up 53%. And then you'd see Riot down 41% year to date versus Bitcoin up 53%. So these are dramatic differences. These two are still lagging way behind, while their other peer, CleanSpark, is actually ahead of Bitcoin. So the question is, are all these Bitcoin miners, are some of these that are lagging dramatically going to start to catch up and do what CleanSpark's already done, which is start to outperform Bitcoin? So that's what I'm looking for potentially over the course of the rest of the year. Obviously, in specific, we'll be taking a look at this week to see if this trend continues. Can we put 2 weeks together in a row where the Bitcoin miners outperform Bitcoin? This chart is comparing the price of Bitcoin to the Bitcoin miners as of Friday versus November of 2021, when Bitcoin hit its previous all-time high. So Bitcoin hit 69,000 back in early November of 2021, and many of the Bitcoin miners hit their all-time high at the same time. For some of them, it was a local high. So measuring from that point, you're going to see Bitcoin as of Friday was down 7%. So going into the halving, Bitcoin was down about 7% off of its previous all-time high, but it is worth noting this has been trading in a range, and we did break the previous all-time high prior to the halving. That is the first time that has ever happened. So the price action on Bitcoin has been very strong. Conversely, you're going to see deep red on this chart all the way through the Bitcoin miners. CleanSpark in the lead on this time frame as well, down only 27%, still lagging behind Bitcoin, but by by far the closest. The next closest is Cypher, down 62%. DMG Blockchain, which is a microcap stock, down 73%. Then we get to Bitfarms, down 79%. Marathon and Riot, down 80%. So this chart actually represents where the Bitcoin miners were at the halving, because this was the day of the halving. So once again, Marathon and Riot were down 80% from their previous highs from the previous halving. This is exactly what they did in the cycle before this. So this is back-to-back cycles. Marathon and Riot have gone into the halving down 80% off of their previous highs. Now, of course, in the last cycle, both of these companies ran back and set new all-time highs. So we're going to have to see, does that happen again in this cycle, or is this cycle different? I want to take a look at the performance of the equity markets, the commodities, and the two major cryptocurrencies, because I think something else important happened this week. You're going to see the only things that were up were silver and gold. This was a rough week for the equity markets. It was a rough week for cryptocurrency. So while silver and gold continue to surge, and when we look at year to date, you're going to see they're doing quite well. The Dow was flat on the week. Other than that, the US indexes were down in a pretty big way this week. The Russell 2000 was down almost 3%. The Bitcoin miners tend to follow along with the Russell 2000. You're going to see the NASDAQ was down 5.5%. Bitcoin tends to follow along with the NASDAQ. And then you see Bitcoin itself was down 3.75% for the week. So this was a down week for Bitcoin. This was a down week for the equity funds, yet most of the Bitcoin miners had a good week. So this is another big break in the trend. Typically, if either Bitcoin or the equity markets are having a bad week, the Bitcoin miners have been dragged down with that. Well, both Bitcoin and the equity markets had a bad week last week, yet the Bitcoin miners rallied. So again, it's too soon to call this a trend, but that was a very notable price action, particularly on Friday. We're going to see if that picks up this week. I'm recording this early before the market opens, and the price action looks good so far, but I will say, even on a daily basis, this can change from hour to hour. So we're going to have to see where this ends up at the end of today. But more importantly, where does all this end up at the end of this week? Can we put 2 weeks together in a row where the Bitcoin miners outperform? Lastly, if we look at the indexes year to date, you're going to see the cryptocurrencies are way out in the lead. Bitcoin is way out in the lead. Bitcoin's up 53% year to date as of Friday. Ethereum up 35% year to date as of Friday. By the way, Bitcoin dominance is at or near a multi-year high still. Then you're going to see silver and gold. Silver up almost 21%, gold up 16% year to date. Gold at or near its all-time high, silver at or near basically a 12-year high. So these have been very strong performing. The S&P and the NASDAQ were off to the races earlier this year, but they continue to pull back. The NASDAQ is only up now 1.8% on the year. The Dow up less than 1%, and you're going to see the Russell now getting deeper and deeper into the red, down almost 4% year to date. So this is 3 years into the Russell continuing to underperform. So that is the other piece of the puzzle that I'm looking for. At some point, does the rotation happen back into the Russell? That's one of the things I'm looking for as an indicator that the Bitcoin miners are going to be starting their run up. Lastly, if we take a look at the Bitcoin chart, you're going to see we do have a red line at just under $62,000. This line continues to hold. We did close below this one day. We talked about the fact that we would be looking for confirmation, but instead we got a big green candle the next day and jumped right back above this line. We've been heading up ever since. So we continue to trade in a range somewhere between 62,000 and 74,000, which is Bitcoin's new all-time high. Just taking a look at the daily RSI, we've been paying close attention to this. I've been waiting for a particular signal to happen. There's been a descending line of resistance, this green line. So the daily RSI has been going down over the course of the last couple of months, and it keeps running into this wall. One of the things we've been talking about on this channel is if we can break out of this descending line of resistance, maybe we can take that next leg up for Bitcoin and start to test the top of this range we're in. We've been hanging out near the bottom of this range. If I zoom in over the weekend, you're going to see a few important things happened. The first thing is there was a line of support here at around 46 that we went under. We spent about a week under that. We jumped back above that. So that was step one. Number two, currently, as of today, if today holds, and it is a green day right now, we are above this descending line of resistance. So that was the indicator that I was looking for. Now, this is on the one-day time frame, so we need to see a daily candle close. And as we always talk about, we also need to see confirmation. So We need to see this close here today above this green line and stay above it tomorrow. The other thing, there's a blue line here at 50, which is neutral on the RSI. If we could close above that as well, so there's a convergence of action here. If this can hold up, I do think that this would be a signal. We are maybe within 24 hours of confirming potentially a breakout in the short term to the upside for Bitcoin. I will caution everybody, if we take a look at the daily RSI, we have been faked out twice before recently. You're going to see on the histogram right now, it currently looks like momentum is picking up and we're headed towards a bullish crossover, but this has happened twice before in the last month. We saw a run up to a very nearly a bullish crossover, but this was a fake out and it reversed, and then this happened again, another fake out and it reversed. So now here we are again, with momentum in this direction heading up towards a bullish crossover. So if we can break out of the line of resistance on the daily RSI, if we can confirm this bullish crossover on the MACD, I do think we could continue. What you can see is momentum to the upside here for Bitcoin over the last week, and maybe retest the top of this range somewhere here around our new all-time high of around $74,000. So that's what I'm looking for. But like I said, we have been faked out a couple of times over the last month and a half. We continue to trade sideways inside this range. So that's what I'm going to be taking a look for over the course of this week. So congratulations to everybody who hung in there. We have made it to the halving and through the halving. So if you made it this far in the video, thanks so much for watching. Please remember to smash the like button. And of course, if you like this content, consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks again, and we will see you in the next video.